Today we're going to talk about the 3-3 invasion, where black invades here. And in the past, humans would say block on the side that has more space or more potential. And obviously we would want to block this side because we are facing, our stone here. The lower side is basically white side of the board that she has potential to develop. So that's what we would do based on traditional, opening theory. But nowadays, if you run Katago, I think if you run Leela as well, it will tell you to block this side. But today, we're less focused about the directional blocking, but more focused about the follow-ups here. These three follow-ups in particular that we're going to cover. So I will first of all tell you that this is no longer considered an acceptable Joseki for white, because if black invades both sides like this, then it's actually really hard for white to play, given that black has invaded both corners and can and there are peeps on the walls of the outside that would make white's wall quite inefficient and not necessarily like alive or thick for that matter. And given that white's wall can be potentially attacked, this is not it's not recommended to play like this anymore. And in fact, when here, let's focus on the Hane on the two stones first. So in fact, when AI plays this Hane, I'd say 90% of the time AI would recommend the double Hane. It thinks that the double Hane is better. And the basic Joseki sequence goes like this. Here, it's basically a trade where black captures one stone and white captures two stones. So, yeah, white has defended the corner, but has given black some really nice eye shape on the left side of the board. So black has now pretty good potential to develop, especially given his 4/4 stone on the top left corner. So black has pretty good potential on the left side now. And in fact, if you play like this in the beginning of the game, white's winning percentage probably dropped by roughly 2 to 3%. So even though this is a Joseki sequence, you can't just play it out. You have to understand when is the appropriate time to use this kind of sequence. So that's what we're going to focus on regarding this double Hane Joseki sequence. Any questions regarding the basic double Hane Joseki sequence so far?
No.
Okay, good. Okay. So basically the double Hane Joseki is very territorial. White gets the corner, and white also gets gote. So it's black's next. Black gets the next turn, which is something to be mindful of. Meaning that after you play this, make sure that there is nothing on the board is going to be extremely urgent. Because if there is something on the board extremely urgent, then white is in trouble. It will be some urgent point, and then this move becomes like a Mii for black. Then it will be quite painful for white. So be mindful that the double Hane is territorial and gote. And the condition for white to play like this is that white has to make black's Ponuki really inefficient, or potentially even attack or kill the Ponuki. So that's like the key condition for white to successfully play this double Hane. So let's look at an example. Say say black invaded this corner and we play out some 3-3 invasion Joseki pattern. Yeah, let's just play out this one. Okay, so say here, black played a 2-space extension, which is kind of low. It's on the 3rd line. A lot of times we would want to play a knight's move or either Tanuki. But say if black plays a low position, allowing white to take some sente moves, and now black is basically pushed down to like 3rd line territory, whereas white got some free moves in the center to build influence. Say if this were played out and now black invades the 3-3, so now given black's very low position, and white's on top, right? So black doesn't have much potential to develop the lower side anymore, meaning that this lower side is of the least importance, or the lower side is of the least value, of the entire board. So if now white uses a double Hane, let's look at this. Okay, so now you can see how these 4 stones, it helps, supporting black to collect this amount of territory. Maybe a little bit more over here. Sure, I'll give even these. And that's it. This is a pretty horrible result for black because black's Panuki is extremely inefficient. He doesn't have the potential to really build this up to anything significant. It's almost feels like black got like a Gote end game with no significant potential, and that's it. So this is how you, this is a good example of white playing the double Hane correctly, where black has no significant potential. So another example would be, say, it's like this. And if black ends up playing like a really low and slow move, like, so now black is settled and his position overall is very low. And say black now invades 3-3 again. Once again, if you use the double Hane and you give basically the most worthless side of the board to black, then you can see black has, I actually can't even give black a whole lot of points, maybe like this, because in the future, white can still play like a shoulder hit on the top of black. So black really doesn't have good potential here at all. So this is I hope you see the pattern of when to use the double Hane. That is when you see your opponent is being pushed down to a really low position, then yeah, you should definitely consider a double Hane where you get to secure the corner and make your opponents, I'd say, over concentrated and inefficient. And finally, we can look at another pattern where, let's say, this kind of Joseki was played out. So after a 3-3 invasion, if white extends black, and if the ladder is good for black, black can always choose this jump, which would lead to, I'd say, better territorial gains. And one of the Joseki patterns is an extension, make this exchange, and then cut. And note that you cannot capture this stone because now white has made this and that exchange. It's like when white pushes, black failed to play a tiger's mouth, black ends up playing like an empty triangle. Yeah, the exchange of these 2 moves it's way too good for white. So at this point, when white cuts, well, black does not have an option. Black can only defend, And then white has a really nice test strategy. And then black has to defend. And then white blocks. And then black will crawl out. So in this situation, if white invades the corner, here, black can once again consider a double Hane. And note that this time, white is not in a low position. White is in the high position, but black can still play this double Hane because after getting a Panuki, white doesn't have a good way to make territory with this Panuki. White at least owes an extension and then the bend and then a knight's move or possibly a push. White owes at least 3 moves before she can secure this territory, right? Meaning that there is no good way to make territory. So once again, white's Panuki is extremely inefficient. All thanks to black's second line crawl here. Yeah, because of black's crawl here, white cannot make territory efficiently. So this is also a really good position to use the double Hane. Does that make sense so far? Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So finally, we'll talk about a more difficult pattern. If black plays an approach, gets pincer, let's say some exchanges were made that was beneficial for white. Let's say something like this was made. And white defends, black bends. So black kind of gained influence on top side, but gave white a lot of thickness here. Now if black blocks, black invades, normally we would want to block on, this side because we know that we can make territory. But because, let's look at what would happen if we intentionally let black enter, this seemingly valuable side. Let's look at this double Hane again. Okay, black got Panuki, but do you think black is alive? I see one eye, and that's it. Meaning that black got Panuki, but he's not alive. If he's not alive, this means white can, in the future, either pincer this group, or can play a knight's move, get Sente against this group. It basically means black definitely owes at least 1 move to save this weak group. So this is another scenario in which you can play the double Hane. It seems like you're losing the potential to make territory here, which is true, but you gain the initiative. Double Hane, it results in a gote, right? But if your opponent has a weak group, you are most likely going to get a bunch of Sente moves on the outside. So that can make up for white's territorial loss here. That is, she'll gain initiative, potentially attacking or killing the group. So that's another. So this is, I guess, harder to play because you have to be really good at attacking and life and death in order to, attack your opponents appropriately. But this is how AI would recommend in this situation. That is, you play a double Hane, create a weak group for your opponent, and you secure the corner. You end up in gote, but it's okay because you'll have the initiative. Okay, I hope that makes sense. Yes. So basically, in summary, you want to play double Hane if you can make your opponent's Panuki inefficient or attackable. Yeah. And now we can cover some trick moves that's similar to the double Hane. So let's say black invaded here, Hane on 2 stones, and then your opponent Hane on this side. So I'd say most people instinctively would either want to block here to live in the corner, or Atari here, play the outside. So while it is okay to play like this, it's okay to say, take the outside, take the influence. It's okay. Katago prefers that black would focus on living on the inside. And here, white has two potential trick moves, either double hane or atari. So let's look at the double hane first. So given that we know the double hane Joseki, it's possible that we might want to play like this. But if you play like this, black's win rate is about like 9%. So this is a super critical mistake because white, its corner has absolutely no aji. And you can see this and that exchange is extremely bad for black. Black lost endgame, black doesn't have good aji against white's corner. Yeah, this is just extremely horrible for black. So make sure you don't fall for this trick. So in this case, if you're not allowed to capture the stone on the outside, then here, particularly in this situation where the ladder is good for black, Katago would recommend that you atari, that is you cut first, and then you live, and then you realize that white cannot ladder you. Therefore, white can only play a move like this. Then black Sente lived in the corner plus this stone, black can still run out in the future. And not to mention, black has really good endgame in the future to clamp on this stone. So white can't really develop the lower side well. So this is a pretty bad, pretty terrible result for white. And therefore, yeah, this is how you punish the trick move. And if white plays like this atari instead, then obviously you have to defend. And then white ataris again. So here, if you just capture, allowing white to defend on the outside, then that's being too nice to white because white is all connected. So here, once again, it's recommended that you play this atari. White connects, and here, instead of capturing this stone, black can actually extend because white has made a really terrible exchange, this second line exchange that allows black to capture this one stone to live. Yeah, basically black can capture either this stone or that stone to live. Given that black is already alive, black can take Sente and extend here, threatening to attack white's 2 stone. So this result is extraordinarily terrible for white. Yeah, it probably will end up something like this. And if you want to, yeah, you can even play like this. And yeah, white is going to be in a very passive and low position here. So yeah, the key is that when your opponent make this second line hane exchange and plays either double hane or cut, whatever you do, you first leave some aji on the outside and then make sure that your corner lives, and then you're doing just fine punishing this trick move. Any questions so far? Okay.
Nope.
So the double hane is one of the moves that's recommended by AI in those in specific circumstances. And another move that's possible. Well, let's do an easier one. And sorry, another move that's recommended is an extension. So the extension, the intent is basically to get a really simple, straightforward Sente. Because when white extends, black definitely owes a move. And typically speaking, black has to play either 1, 2, 3, these 3 ways. And basically whatever black plays, say for example, if black plays here, then white can already tenuki. If black plays a one space jump, white can still tenuki. If black plays an extension, however, then white probably will hane once and then tenuki. So whatever black does, white is definitely going to get sente and can play elsewhere. So you would only want to use the extension if the sente is really important and you want your group to be settled. So let's look at an example in which AI would recommend this move. So say black approached here and white played the diagonal, which is pretty common as AI recommends, and then black invades here. So now it is actually a good idea to block this side, because after these moves, white is going to get sente and white can play the critical move in this situation. The critical move is obviously a pincer, because this pincer not only attacks black's one stone, it's also really good for developing white's lower side. So this is a critical move that white cannot miss. So let's look at a way in which white fails to make good use of the extension Joseki. So imagine if white blocks this way. Okay, and then this Joseki is played out, then now, is there a critical move on the board? Think about it. Now, if white pincers, is this really that big of a deal? Now the lower side, there's no significant potential to develop. So it's just the matter of attacking this stone. But actually black can still afford to tenuki, because even if white plays like this, there's still a ton of aji that black can utilize later on. And it's actually covered in last lecture video. Feel free to go to YouTube and check it out about this, the aji in this corner. So white, by blocking on the wrong side of the board, has failed to create a critical move that she wants to take sente and play. So this is how you don't want to use this Joseki. Basically, when you block a side, make sure that you have a really powerful or critical move to follow up, so that your sente that you take is really worth it. So yeah, once again here, if you block this way, this pincer becomes a critical move that allows you to develop the lower side. But if you block the wrong way, yeah, there's nothing critical at this situation. The corner approaches here are definitely not critical, because there are like 4 corner approaches. If you get, yeah, it's not critical. So yeah, basically the trait of this extension Joseki, I'd say it's very it's sente, it's forcing, and it's settled. It's a settled group that allows you to tenuki comfortably. So this extension, a lot of times it's also compared to it's a lot of times compared to this pattern. So this, at this moment, white can still pincer. So it's just an extra exchange of, I guess, a few moves like this. Well, I guess it's, yeah, an extra hane on the 3 stones, plus white has like a cutting point here. So we're going to now look into like the differences between just the extension versus this Joseki, where white plays knight's move, black extends, white blocks, and then black hanes. They both get you sente, but there are some subtleties, some differences between them. So let's go back here. Say, sorry. Oops. Say black invades the corner and white plays the extension to take Sente and decides to defend, your play a corner enclosure. So that's a pretty big move. And black starts pincering this 3 stones. Then right now, white obviously can counter pincer because the 3 stones are, it's okay. It has no significant weakness right now. And when black jumps out, white can, fly out efficiently, and black can kind of just continue running out. So right now, you realize that these 3 stones, the influence that it originally had is kind of used up. It's not really doing much at all. So, so it would be great if white can somehow switch the influence to a different side of the board. And turns out the sequence for white to make her stones useful again, it's quite interesting. It starts with the Hane here, threatening to enter black's corner, so black defends. And then white can play this move to cut black. So instinctively, we will want to defend here, right? And then white just violently cut this. And here, black doesn't really have a good option other than capturing. And if black does that, then white can tari, black captures, and then you can see that white transferred her influence. Instead of facing the lower side of the board, now she's facing, her influence has been transferred to the left side of the board. So, and black's corner didn't, increase in territory significantly. It's still confined to a very small space. So this is how white can play in this, as a really good follow-up after she gets her lower side gets invaded. And we can look at other variations. For example, if black plays like this, white can actually get a nice squeeze. And here, white can even extend here. And here black will actually owe a move. So later on, there's a cut, but these 3 stones have become really light because white has already gained a lot of strength from the left side. So yeah, here you can see how black lost a ton of territory, and then in fact gave white gave white basically eyes here. So this result is, I'd say, definitely no good for black. And finally, if black knows that pushing through here, allowing white to cut doesn't result in anything good, black can consider directly just capturing the stone. And then here white cuts through black's territory. And here black has 2 options. You either extend here or you pincer white again. And I can tell you definitely extending here doesn't have a ton of value because we know that the lower side is pretty much the most worthless side of the board. You can't make a lot of points here. That's why white decided to switch her influence to the left side anyway at the first place. So if white gets this result, that's great for white. And here, black obviously should try to be more aggressive, try to pincer white, but white can get a lot of Sente moves here. And in fact, the corner the corner is, it's quite troublesome to deal with because if, say, black spends a move on the outside, white can get this move, and this move in Sente. So just want to be clear. When white plays here, black's corner is about to die, so black needs to defend somehow. And when white descends here, black's corner is about to die, so black needs to defend here. And then white descends here, black is about to die because white is about to squeeze out this eye. So black actually needs to defend here. So now you can see, given that white can get so many Sente moves on the outside, white has actually pretty good eye shape and it's not really under attack severely. So this is entirely playable for white, and black's territory is obviously quite limited. So this is just to show you how useful it is for white to have this nice little Tetsuji Hani on the second line, and then this cut to switch sides and destroy your opponent's territory, and also make really nice shape for yourself to resolve this kind of attacking issue. So this is a really good follow-up that we should, I'd say, memorize for this kind of pattern. So now we can, now we know that white has a really nice switching sequence that is transfer her influence from the lower side to the left side. We are ready to compare this nice switching sequence to this kind of wall. So say if this were played out, and then white takes Sente, and then here black pincers again, can white repeat the same kind of result? So so here, well, the answer is, I hope it's obviously no, because white has a really, really severe cutting point here. So the moment when white counter pincers here, black can just violently cut this. And white is now split into two groups, and white has to somehow struggle to save her 3 stones. So this is a nice little Tetsuji. Don't capture this 1 stone because you are going to lose these 2 stones, and these 3 stones are not completely dead yet. So black has to like spend an extra move. But basically black will end up killing these 3 stones in Gotek, which is quite painful. So don't capture that, yeah. So it's recommended that you defend your corner, and white can get an extra Atari. White can get this tiger's mouth, and then now black can start to threaten these 3 stones. And as white runs out to save her lower group, black can just calmly, yeah, just attack the 3 stones. And obviously this will become like exchange where white attacks this and these 3 stones are practically dead. So this result is not super great for white because black was able to cut white into 2 pieces and hurt her 3 stones really bad. So yeah, this is not optimal for white. And therefore, at this point, when black plays like a 3-space pincer against this group, it's important that you defend your cutting point by simply just extending. And even though black gets a nice extension here, black's corner has actually pretty bad Aji. Just to give you an idea, white doesn't need to play it right now, but I just want to show you that, say if black ever peeps at white, white can immediately play this kind of sequence, say black captures. Then here you can see that if black extends, this ends up being a ko, right? So it will be like a ko kill for the corner. Or if black is more careful, he would capture this way, but it's still going to be a ko. So having a ko obviously will give white a lot more flexibility to manage this group as black tries to attack white. And usually the peeping is the right timing to start this ko, because the moment when black peeps, when you start this ko, you're basically asking black, oh, is it even worth connecting at here through a series of ko threats? And if you finish the ko, you probably never even need to spend a move to connect your stones anyway. So usually when your opponent peeps you, that is when you want to initiate the ko and see how black answers. And depending on the answer, then you decide if you really want to connect your stones or not. Yeah, so I hope you see that one really significant difference between the extension and this Hane on the 3 stones. That is, when black pincers you, white kind of owes a move for this group. Whereas previously, with just the 3 stone extended here, and black pincers you, yeah, white could totally afford a counterattack. So that's one really huge difference between the two. So any questions so far?
No, no.
Okay. Okay, so let's look at a different pattern. Say white has a stone here. And say something like this was played out. And then white takes Sante, approaches the corner, black enters 3-3 again. So here, the interesting thing is that AI would definitely want you to block on this side. And because right now, white has a really, really nice sequence to switch sides again, basically. So just because white blocked on this side doesn't mean that she's going to get influence on the right side of the board. So now AI would recommend this Hane and then this cut. And then here, if black passively plays this move, then you can see how white, how white would be able to transfer her influence to the lower side of the board. And actually black even white even got really good influence on the right side as well. So this is what happens if black plays kind of passively. Another way that's black plays quite often is the second line capture, but white gets a nice squeeze, taking out the corner territory, and black gets a nice knight's move to slide into white's side where she blocked, and then white can play a knight's move to develop this influence. And usually this group it owes a move to play an extension of some sort. Because otherwise, if white gets a pincering on this side, black has to go to make life locally. So if black indeed does spend an extra move, here white can actually continue this Joseki by a really simple extension. And here you can see how white did not even spend a single extension stone on the lower side, but she's getting some really good potential here. So this is like AI's recommended way of developing Moyos. In general, AI doesn't even want to spend an extension stone here, but just naturally build walls around your opponent and and basically make things natural, make the Moyo naturally occur. So this is a preferred result for white. So that's one thing that we should always keep in mind. That is, when white blocks the direction and follows up with a move like this, then white is in a really good position to like switch sides and build a really good potential on the lower side. And we can actually compare this to the extension Joseki. So remember how previously we talked about how white has this option, and it actually reverts back to the exact same pattern. Oh, sorry. You know, this ends up being exactly the same as the previous pattern if black chooses to play like this. So here, if white chooses to play the extension and wants to switch sides, you know, to get some really good influence at the lower side, white is actually going to face a significant problem. That is, the moment when white plays like this, black can just ignore, allowing black just let white cut through the stones, and black can just extend. So the moment when black extends here, the right side potential for white is just instantly gone. So now obviously white owes a move for her group. White owes an extension stone, but turns out this stone is not entirely dead. If this stone is not entirely dead, then white's group, it's not very thick, it's not very strong. And because of that, black can immediately start taking advantage of white's weakness and just play an attachment, basically forcing white to play some inefficient moves. For example, if white wants to stay connected, then black's one space jump is already a really, really good invasion against white's, you know, lower side potential. And this all happened because white has only disconnected one stone. You know, there's this move and that exchange. I mean, it's certainly a bad exchange for black, but white doesn't have like two eyes. White's shape is not like thick. It has a lot of empty space. It has a lot of, I'd say, a lot of holes. It's not thick. And because it's not thick, black was able to get like Sente exchanges for free and just invade white's lower side for free. So this is an issue because previously in the, you know, in this pattern, so let's play this out. Yeah, in this pattern, white is really thick. Black has there's nothing that black can attach to. I can't attach to a living group like this. Black actually would have to like invade directly, which means that black is going to be a lot more in a more passive role because white has absolutely no weakness. White is really, really thick here. So that's something to be mindful of. Yeah. So, and actually black has another option. At this point, black can also choose to just split this directly. And sure, white can get some Sente moves. You know, black's corner is completely sealed in, but black Sente got a split here. White's wall is, and this stone, yeah, this stone is not completely dead or useless now, right? So this is another way that black can consider. Yeah, so basically what I'm trying to show you is that white trying to switch sides now will not result in a particularly favorable result because no matter what white plays, white's group is not thick. It's not like 100% alive. It doesn't have two eyes. It owes an extension, and when it does play an extension, you can lean onto it. So this kind of switching, it's pretty bad. So that's something to be mindful of. That is, white cannot switch nearly as well as the previous pattern where this occurred, right? Yeah. So in general, I would say the extension is really good if there's a really critical, if it's super critical to get a Sente elsewhere, as shown in previously where white was able to get like a pincer that develops the lower side really well. And uh, the Hane on the 3 stones, like this kind of shape is really good for white to switch her influence early on in the game. For example, in this particular position, and that and also this Hane on the 3 stones allows you to have really good follow up for developing the influence later on. Like if after white successfully switched sides here, if later on white can just play an extension, then she can really develop the center influence significantly. Whereas if you just have like if you just have the 3 stones extension, if you want to expand your influence, your next move is the best move that you could play, you can come up with is actually this nice move, but it's not that impressive because black can always clamp this. Like white can't even afford to descend here because she will have to crawl on the second line so many times, or black could even cut this, and then basically your influence will just get destroyed. So in terms of the potential to expand to the center, I'd say the Hane on the 3 stones gives white a much stronger follow-up in terms of expanding the influence than the extension, the 3 stone extension version here. Okay, and finally, there's one really critical thing about the Hane on the 3 stones pattern. That is, say, white played this pattern out again, and then white tanuki it elsewhere. Here, previously we talked about how, oh, if black can do like a 3-space pincer against this group, the cutting point becomes really severe, and white should consider an extension. While that is true for most of the case, in this situation, it's different because white has a stone that makes the ladder favorable. And which ladder you're talking about? I'm talking about it's this ladder where white hanes and then plays a double hane. And then here, black obviously cannot like make this kind of exchange. There's no way black can play like this. So if black plays like this, Atari try to leave Aji on the outside and then try to live in the corner. Then you can see how this stone just got laddered. And white has developed a really good influence facing her 4-4 point. So, and remember that in this situation, don't play this cut, because if black Atari's here, white Atari's here, now black can Atari here and extend. You can see that this and the move of these two has basically solidified black's corner. Black can live by either capturing this white stone or this white stone. So black is alive, and therefore black took the initiative to extend this stone to start a fight. So remember that, yeah, in this situation, cutting here is extremely bad move that that does not make good use of white's ladder maker. So I should cover this. So if you're wondering what would happen if black extends here to try to start a fight with white, because white never made this terrible, internal cut exchange, white can now afford to kill the entire corner. right? Say black defends, then white just, just kill the whole corner. Or if black defends this way, then white can initiate a code to kill the entire corner. It'll be like something like this. And it will be a really silly code because there are no good code threats for black. Yeah, it'll be really silly. Yeah, 2 stones are dead by loose ladder. So I hope you see the criticality of, in this situation, that is, the double Hane is super important to be utilized when the ladder is good, and especially when your opponent is pincering your group and is aiming at cutting you. This is when you absolutely need to use the double Hane. But otherwise, in general, if there's no severity in terms of black cutting you, then yeah, an internal cut here is totally fine. So that's it's really important to know how to use, like, or when to use the internal cut and the double Hane. So that's all I have for today.